Hey everyone, welcome to Afterwards. This is where I talk without the players here about the session we just did, so I can kind of talk a little bit more. This was sort of the, I couldn't figure out what to do with this episode. I thought, do we go straight into Haddock's Cave? But I was like, no, I want to save Haddock's Cave for another time because we just did, I felt like last time, or very recently, a couple episodes ago, we did a thing where we explored a dungeon, and I was like, I don't want to do that again. I'm kind of out of ideas on that right now. I need to recharge my dungeon inspiration. So this was sort of like, I wanted to bring back the Helm of the Forge because it's such a fun element, and it's honestly been crazy that no one has picked it up in the last, like 100 years or so. So Sons of the Shipwreck finally got it. They figured out where it is. We had very, very little mention. I won't talk too much about the actual episode. I'll talk about some bigger things and some mechanic things. Theof, which is the new leader of the Sons of the Shipwreck after Virgie killed Virgil, her father, to sort of wrest control of it. So she's sort of, half of the Sons of the Shipwreck have come over with Virgie and now act as like Meriton guards and militia and sort of help bolster those ranks, the people who are very loyal to Virgie. The people who tend to be more on the criminal side are more with Theof. So she is, she has master planned this whole thing. She got the helm. She gave it to one of her lieutenants because, she's not gonna put herself in harm's way like that in case it fails like it did. In this case, with Vel just zapping it. So let's, I'll talk about my crime scene. It was pretty much just like, let's give them a crime scene. I was sort of wondering how, I like to just give them problems and figure out how they're gonna solve them, really open-ended, and then just really, rather than set up something with one solution, just set it up with really any solution so long as you can kind of sell it to me. I really wanted Vel to maybe, I don't know if the spell lets you do that, but fabricate bandanas, or maybe charm magic, or again, he doesn't necessarily have this, but I had all these different ways of doing it. The filter of love they could have maybe used to get into the thing, or into the abandoned house, or if they were like looking around, I would have given that, I would have basically just given them hints so long as they come up with a fun avenue of how to get there. And that's kind of a thing that I like to do is, let's just figure out where our next step is and just figure out how do we get there, and not really be so bogged down as there's one solution to this problem. Just have there be an infinite number of solutions. Just what do the players pick? Because it's gonna make them feel smart, because they're gonna go, oh, I thought of this great idea and we did it and it worked out. It's gonna make them feel like they're doing something, and it makes them ultimately it puts them in the driver's seat. So any choice is good so long as they made it in this episode, and made it they did. I loved them being in disguises. I was kind of hoping that, we wouldn't just bust the door down. They would have to like go in with their disguises and like pretend to be Sons of the Shipwreck. But the scene that ended up happening was just as equally fun. Yeah, so again, just a lot of simple checks there and a lot of open-ended storytelling to that session. I'll talk a little bit about my monster construction. So for this guy, I rolled his stats, and I just sort of decided, well, what is he gonna have? He's gonna be tough to hit, so I gave him the 20 AC, and then his hit points should have been 180, but because I gave him the immunity to non-magical weapons, I ended up lowering his HP by half, which is what you're supposed to do, to 90. So he only had 90 hit points, but he's vulnerable to electric damage. So when Vel deals 27 electric damage, that ends up being close to like, 54 lightning damage or something like that. And so when you have 90 HP, like, oh my goodness, that was massive. But then I was reassured in my decision to do that when it was hard for Josh and Casey to hit it. So that was kind of a tougher battle. I didn't get to use, because we didn't go on so long. This guy had some legendary actions. He was a brute, first off. He had the brute, the attribute, which comes from like the bugbear, so he adds an extra damage dice. So his longswords deal 2d10 plus 3, which is quite a bit of damage, which is good because it gets him up to that damage range for what he's a CR10, so it gets it kind of up into that higher damage range. But I changed it so he could throw the longswords at 30 feet range. Which again isn't a huge deal. His actions, he can do his longsword, which he makes 2 attacks, with the longsword, which is, you know, fine. Again, it's all about getting him to his average damage, which should be around 50 per round for his challenge rating. But I did give him some legendary actions, which were fun. He could make a longsword attack just as a legendary action, but he also could summon animated swords, 1d4 of them every round, which again, like 1d4 animated swords, they're like challenge rating half or something. So these guys, it wasn't gonna really cause a problem for these guys, but just sort of working as ads. So, you know, I could be generating up to like 8 swords a round, if I really wanted to. And if this combat went on longer, if maybe Vel was someone different without the lightning damage, this could have been a much tougher fight with lots of ads popping up and the Sons of the Shipwreck being there just to kind of cause problems. I was gonna give him a whirl attack, which he can make an attack against every creature within 5 feet of him just by like spinning the blades around. That again never came up. And I gave him magnetic hold, which allows him to restrain a creature wearing metal. If maybe, you know, Christine hadn't thought to take her armor off, or someone else is wearing metal, you know, restrain someone, and it was a DC strength save to resist. Which again is just making use of these conditions, which are super handy, and just sort of letting, you know, a save or just sort of a save or be restrained effect, and then, you know, you get a save at the end. That's a really simple way to sort of get the idea that, you know, he's holding you in place with your armor, and you can either like fight it or just really clean, really simple. He also had as an attribute control over metal, which means he had advantage on checks and saves versus creatures wearing metal. Just sort of being able to influence them. Again, didn't come up because I had a monk, a barbarian, and a fighter who was smart enough to take her armor off. So, yeah, this boss was fun. I will, I'll put this guy up on the, I'm gonna start putting all my monsters up on the subreddit. And so, yeah, he was awesome. He did what he needed to do, and it made the battle pretty short and sweet in a session that we sort of were running a little bit longer than I thought. I think that's pretty much everything that I have as far as mechanics go. Thanks for watching the new Afterwards. I will see you guys on Monday for another exciting episode of Threshold, Heroes of the Fanged Coast. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Leave me a comment if you have some questions about mechanics or other stuff like that. This is where I can answer them, or about sort of DMing in general. This is where I'll answer those, and we can answer some of more player-relevant discussions on some of the other videos. Check out our Patreon. Check out the rest of our fun D6 Mafia stuff. Check out my Twitter campaign that I'm running with Rasper. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on Monday with another episode.